Important pointers in English literature. Virginia Woolf. What is Virginia Woolf most famous for? Virginia Woolf, January 25, 1882, March 28, 1941, was a British writer born and raised in London, England. She was one of the most famous writers of the modernist era and wrote many best-selling books such as Mrs Dalloway, A Room of One's Own and To the Lighthouse. What did Virginia Woolf believe in? What was Virginia Woolf famous for? She was best known for her novels, especially Mrs Dalloway, 1925, and To the Lighthouse, 1927. She also wrote pioneering essays on artistic theory, literary history, women's writing, and the politics of power. What did Virginia Woolf die of? Suicide. What Virginia Woolf book should I read first? If you're open to trying out Virginia Woolf's writing for the first time, here are some great books to start you off. Mrs Dalloway, 1925. A Room of One's Own, 1929. To the Lighthouse, 1927. The Waves, 1931. Orlando, 1928. What author drowned herself? Today in history, Virginia Woolf drowns herself. On March 28, 1941, Virginia Woolf filled her pockets with stones and drowned herself in the Ouse River near her home in Sussex. Her body was found on April 18. What is the central theme of A Room of One's Own? Amongst Woolf's non-fiction works, one of the best known is A Room of One's Own, 1929, a book-length essay. Considered a key work of feminist literary criticism, it was written following 2 lectures she delivered on women and fiction at Cambridge University the previous year. In it, she examines the historical disempowerment women have faced in many spheres, including social, educational and financial. One of her most famous dicta is contained within the book A Woman Must Have Money and a Room of Her Own if she is to write fiction. Much of her argument, to show you how I arrived at this opinion about the room and the money, is developed through the unsolved problems of women and fiction writing to arrive at her conclusion, although she claimed that was only an opinion upon one minor point. In doing so, she states a good deal about the nature of women and fiction, employing a quasi-fictional style as she examines where women writers failed because of lack of resources and opportunities, examining along the way the experiences of the Brontes, George Eliot, and George Sand, as well as the fictional character of Shakespeare's sister, equipped with the same genius but not position. She contrasted these women who accepted a deferential status, to Jane Austen who wrote entirely as a woman. What is Mrs Dalloway about? Mrs Dalloway, 1925, centers on the efforts of Clarissa Dalloway, a middle-aged society woman, to organize a party, even as her life is paralleled with that of Septimus Warren Smith, a working-class veteran who has returned from the First World War bearing deep psychological scars. What is To the Lighthouse about? To the Lighthouse, 1927, is set on 2 days 10 years apart. The plot centers on the Ramsay family's anticipation of and reflection upon a visit to a lighthouse and the connected familial tensions. One of the primary themes of the novel is the struggle in the creative process that beset painter Lily Briscoe while she struggles to paint in the midst of the family drama. The novel is also a meditation upon the lives of a nation's inhabitants in the midst of war, and of the people left behind. It also explores the passage of time, and how women are forced by society to allow men to take emotional strength from them. What is The Waves about? The Waves, 1931, presents a group of 6 friends whose reflections, which are closer to recitatives than to interior monologues proper, create a wave-like atmosphere that is more akin to a prose poem than to a plot-centered novel. Thank you. Content by Walden Educare, India.